Hello, family. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Coach Sarah Joy Talks. If you guys are here for the first time, thank you so much for following me and being here. And if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. I'm sure you've enjoyed my other episodes, and this one is not going to disappoint either. So, hi Uptown 6300. Hi Damon. Okay, let's get Damon on. Okay. Okay, there we are. Hello, hello. Hi, it's so nice to see you. How you doing?
Likewise. Yeah, it's great.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to start off with your amazing intro. Okay. So on today's new episode of Coach Sarah Joy Talks, you guys, I'm interviewing the very brilliant man here, Damon. Damon, I'm so sorry. I can't say your last name. I don't want to butcher it.
No one can. It's. I don't take offense. Don't worry. It's pronounced Sununtnasuk, but Damon is totally fine.
Okay. That's a beautiful last name. Yes, I could not say that. So he serves as the CEO of Natural Cure Labs, operating as Palmara Health and VitaTails brand supplements. He has an internationally decorated career in health, technology, and leadership. Hello, Lazy Lucy. His work and travel has taken him to more than 70 countries across 6 continents. Man, you're busy. He's the founder and president of several award-winning companies, including an industry-recognized strategy consulting firm with a global client base. Damon earned his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of Florida and his Master of Business Administration with honors, congrats, from the University of Cambridge, England. Damon, I bet your parents are so proud of you.
It's been a journey.
Right? All right, so I'm sure, hey, Lucy. Lucia, if you, thank you for being here. If you have any questions along the way, or if you have a question you'd like to drop for us, go ahead and put that in the comment box and we'll get to it. Okay, you guys, so I want to start off, hi, Christine. I want to start off with my story because my story feeds into why I'm here with Damon, why I love his supplements, why I think he's just such a brilliant man, and I appreciate everything he's doing for the world. So, okay, I'm going to try to keep this short. Damon, I don't even know if you know my story, honestly. So, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. I was sick for 10 years, really, really sick. And over the years, well, I guess it like gradually got worse over 10 years. And like the majority of the people following me, honestly, it's like a common story in our country nowadays of like, we're going to the doctors, we're trying to get help, we're getting these diagnoses, we're not getting the answers, and we're just kind of desperately seeking help as our symptoms worsen. And that's exactly what happened to me. I just could never, it didn't matter. I went through 3 endos, a couple functional medicine doctors, integrated doctors, endocrinologists. I mean, you name it, I did it, right? And it was around 2015 when I got my first Epstein-Barr diagnosis in the same sentence as my Hashimoto's diagnosis, I might add, that I dropped about $5,000 on this doctor, and she was giving me vitamin pushes, like vitamin IVs, B12 shots, having me sit in the sauna and get facials because it was a med spa. And so I, kind of gave up after that and succumbed to death. I didn't know what else to do, right? And then it was about a year later, my brother was released from prison and he was shot 14 times by the police department. And it was that moment when I was like, damn, life is really short and precious. What am I doing? I realized I was miserably married. I didn't like the town I was in, like just everything in my life I wanted to change, especially my health. And so I made all these radical decisions, enrolled back in school, and one thing led to another. I ended up guinea pigging myself with so much testing. And one of the first things that I found was my infections. I had a really severe Epstein-Barr. I was pulling all my Epstein-Barr antibodies. I struggled with mouth breakouts for 15 years. And within this testing, I started to piece together all my root causes that gave me the hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's diagnoses. And I found that what we're being taught and what we're being told by the systems is not what's really happening. So it was actually when I really started honing in on the viruses and doing some very strategic antiviral protocols with lysine, with monolaurin, with herbs, with minerals, with food, healing my trauma, doing a lot of energy work, that I started actually getting better for the first time, outside of big pharma. And it just catapulted me into becoming a coach. And kind of by mistake, I started noticing that my clients were giving me their labs, and they would have really severe thyroid antibodies as well as Epstein-Barr antibodies. They were coming to me with shingles, cytomegalovirus, and I'm seeing all these infections almost by accident. And then once my client, she worked with me for 3 months. She was so severely sick from Epstein-Barr that she would come home from her shift at the hospital and black out on her couch. So I started doing really strong antiviral approach with her. By the end of 3 months, she was in the gym working out. She fell off the wagon after she stopped coaching with me, and it went into thyroid cancer, EBV. They actually named it Epstein-Barr based thyroid cancer. And these sort of things have like stood out to me over the years. I've been doing this now for 4 years. And now I actively look for these infections because one of the things that I'm seeing, first starting with myself and now with a lot of my clients, is people are struggling with 1 to 4, even like severe viral infections, whether they got it from childhood or as an adult, they contracted an STD, STI. And so that's what brings me to you, because your line of supplements is so unique that it just, focuses on viruses, and I really appreciate that. So let's let's start with you. Like, how the heck did you get into this and developing like viral support supplements?
Well, first I want to say, thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure to connect with you in this forum because you and I have been working together for a couple of years now and trading lots of messages and emails and calls, but it's really fantastic to be here with your audience. But and thank you for your story as well. That's really, really powerful. And I think we should talk about some of those like comorbidities, those co-located viruses that you talked about, Hashimoto's, and this really interesting research around that. But before we jump in all of that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my backstory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my foray into this space really started because I worked overseas for a long time. As you heard at the top, like I studied in England. I lived in Europe for many years. I lived in East Asia for a couple years, and I was very fortunate to be always in a country that provided sort of universal access to healthcare. And being originally from the United States, after I had my adventures abroad, I came back to the U.S., right, as most expats do. But for the first time in my adult life, I found myself in a situation where I didn't have the protection of, you know, universal healthcare. I wasn't covered. I didn't have insurance, and I was like desperately empathizing with the 100 million plus Americans who suffer from something called medication insecurity, where they can't afford the therapeutics or drugs they need to maintain their health, or the tens of millions of Americans who just simply don't have insurance at all. And walking through the aisles of your average CVS or Walgreens was kind of sad, right? If you couldn't afford the products behind the pharmacy shelf, you're really restricted to the products that were out on the shop floor, and you turn a simple bottle around. There's just not great stuff inside of it. Lots of fillers, artificial excipients, different stabilizers, and basically supplement facts panels that just didn't provide any remotely close to therapeutic dose of vitamin or mineral or supplement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought there has to be a better way. All right, and this was back in 2015 in San Francisco, and one of the benefits of being in such a location is like that's all anyone could talk about is their business and their startup. And I thought, well, let's try to change the industry for good. Let's try to be a force for good. Let's try to democratize access to research-based supplements. Let's try to get people involved in their healthcare, their personal wellness journey. And so we started with, focusing primarily on research-based formulas and ingredients, but also a huge effort on education, right? I'm a really, really big fan of people educating themselves and sort of feeling really enabled and
Mm.
empowered to seek out the information for themselves. Because, frankly, people shouldn't trust uh, folks like myself who may have a vested interest or brands that may be pushing something in a non-compliant way. So one of the really big core principles we have as a company is providing and sharing and enabling people to seek out the research and educate themselves on different options out there and make personal choices. And that's how we got started back in 2015, almost a decade ago now.
Wow. Yeah, I love that you brought up CVS supplements because I've said that to my clients many times. I'm like, did you buy these at Walmart? Like, did you get these at Walgreens or CVS? Like, throw them away, please. They're actually damaging your health more than like helping you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's really cool. I love that. Thank you for sharing. So, it's been a decade now, and you guys, well, you can share a little bit more about it right now, but I am so impressed with the amount of awards. I've never seen a supplement company get so many awards. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You guys are like constantly getting awards. Talk about all that really fast.
That's really flattering of you to recognize that, and thank
Mhm.
you for bringing it up. Look, when it comes to making personal health decisions, apart from education, I feel trust is a really a critical element when you decide to put something like in your body, right? When you decide to ingest something, right? And a more traditional path might be to spend a lot of effort on advertising, but I don't think a beautiful person holding a bottle is necessarily the right way to educate and convince someone to start a supplement routine, right? So for us, we really buckle down on the education, buckle down on the research, and focus on the elements of quality and trust that have come to define us over the last 9 years. And so that's really manifested itself through awards, right? So we're very proud to have won, I think, 7 American Business Awards in the last 4 years, which is the most popular or well recognized awards body in the United States. There's been several awards we've won for quality, for manufacturing, for our publications, for things like innovative formulas and things of that nature. And we let the awards do the talking. We don't
Mhm.
advertise them. We don't put them on billboards or anything like that. But I'm a firm believer that people who are seeking out clean label, trustworthy quality supplements will care about those aspects.
Absolutely. Finding a good quality, clean labeled supplement company is hard. It's hard nowadays. A lot of people, they can have a cool looking label or, they can make it sound really amazing. But, it's along with the nutrition industry, being able to recognize and know what a good supplement is nowadays and trust it is kind of hard. So I do love that you have your awards up on your website and they do speak for themselves. That was the first thing I noticed. And then talking to you and seeing the research, I'm like, okay, I found a winner. I found me a winner.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
later
so
on in our conversation, I'd love to get into some of the decision-making criteria for choosing a good supplement. One of the things that I try to avoid when having these types of conversations is I don't necessarily like to talk about our own product or our own brand. I mean, big fan. Like again, our main mission here is providing research and empowerment for those to make educated decisions on their own lifestyle choices. And if that happens to include supplements, great. And if it happens to include our supplements, well, that's also fantastic. But I'm a big believer in like like a rising tide sort of lifts all ships. And so when I speak about, hey, what are the selection criteria? What are you really looking for? What are some of the options that are out there? Um, I like to give it in a general sense, and I never point someone explicitly towards one of our own products. I want people to know the criteria and make their own choices.
I love that. Humble, Damon, very humble. Okay, so one of the things that, let's start getting into the nitty-gritty, shall we? Thank you, class and sass. Um, So, like I was saying before, I find that I'm one of the first coaches that is seeing these connections, and I'm sort of pioneering this connection between viruses. I mean, from what I can see, I'm the only person really talking about it and or integrating it into my programs. The connection between, HSV1 or HSV2, like herpes is a very broad term, right? There's multiple different strains of herpes, and how someone can get a diagnosis of HSV2, and then next thing we know, it's going into hypothyroidism or Graves. There's a lot of segregation of like, oh, I was diagnosed with this, but I also have that. And I'm like, no, these are going together. And so I'm not going to ask you, particularly to speak on that. But what I'm saying is I'm seeing this. So when I first started coaching, I was just coaching on like how to help, you know, figure out the root causes through testing. I use the hair tissue mineral analysis. I use a state-of-the-art gut test by Microbiome Labs called the BiomeFX. I don't focus on blood work because I know that it's not the end all be all. If it was, we'd all be better by now, right? And so I really like to look at mineral deficiencies, gut imbalances, and infections. I'm seeing that, well, I mean, trauma and a lot of these other things, because I'm whole body, it goes into it, but that's the core of what I'm finding. So I recently shifted my programs to always including the viral aspect of working with me. So as I've been doing this, I'm noticing that I get really great results with my clients. And I've been integrating your Lysine Monolaurin and a lot of your products for years now. So, but so let's start with the basics, because a lot of people just don't even know, like, what is lysine, what is monolaurin, and like your brand, you are the only brand that has the combo and a clean combo and a high dose combo, and I love that. So let's talk about lysine monolaurin. What are they and what are the differences?
Wonderful. Yeah, let's unpack this. The lysine and monolaurin combination has quickly risen to be one of our top product, and rightly so. It's really just two ingredients. So you have L-lysine. L-lysine is what's called an essential amino acid. So your body cannot produce it on its own. It has to be consumed either through diet or through supplementation. L-lysine has effects across your body's metabolism and supports things like bone density and growth, muscle repair, synthesis of some vitamins and minerals within your body, and it's an essential amino acid. And our lysine is vegan sourced from non-GMO organic corn, and it's clean label as you rightly said. Monolaurin and lysine has been known for all eternity and it's very popular. You get it, from diet through things like animal proteins, fish, eggs, different meats, and some vegetable sources, vegan sources like legumes, lentils, beans, things of that nature, right? But people who are on a vegan or vegetarian diet sometimes find it difficult to get sufficient lysine within their diet. And so sometimes supplementation is a good option for that population. When it comes to monolaurin, it probably warrants a little bit more explanation. It's something that is not as common or familiar as L-lysine, although it is gaining a lot of popularity. So monolaurin is synthesized from lauric acid. Lauric acid is really the hero of the story here, and lauric acid is a medium chain fatty acid. I think it's 12 carbon atom chain, medium chain triglyceride, and it's really only found in nature in three areas, which is really surprising. The first is mother's breast milk. And we can unpack the sort of the discovery story there. I think it's a fascinating one. The second is palm
Yeah.
kernel oil, and the final is coconut oil. And
Hmm.
so when lauric acid is ingested, it's converted into monolaurin. And monolaurin, but the rate of conversion is not fully understood. And so someone could, looking to increase their intake of lauric acid and monolaurin, could choose to integrate a high amount of coconut oil into their diet through cooking with it, or even putting it in coffee, something along those lines. But it's really hard to get to like high doses with taking it naturally, because palm kernel oil has about 48-49% lauric acid content, and coconut oil is around 49 or 50% lauric acid out of the medium chain fatty acid content of coconut oil. So it is the highest concentration of lauric acid, but again, the conversion in the body is currently unknown. Now, why would you want to take monolaurin, right? Like
Yeah.
lysine is great. It's very well documented for bone health, muscle health, digestive health, etc. Like it has sort of like total body benefits. But why monolaurin? Well, monolaurin, and I have to, you'll have to forgive me, because if I start to measure my words a little bit here, it's just because I'm trying to be as compliant as possible. According to the FDA and FTC, as we know, no supplement is meant to treat, cure, mitigate, diagnose
Mhm.
disease, and so I want to be very explicit about that. But there's a lot of amazing research around monolaurin and its potential impacts on digestive health, skin health, and overall immune support, right? And this could be witnessed not just through its popularity as a supplement, but also its applications in other industries. I don't know if you knew this, but like we all sort of encounter monolaurin on a day-to-day basis, whether we know it or not. And for example, monolaurin has been used in the cosmetic industry for a long time as a surfactant and a shelf stabilizer. Think about where you store cosmetics traditionally, right? Usually in like a bathroom.
Mhm.
And the bathroom is like the worst place to have something that you like put on your skin, right? On your eyes and your
Never
nose and
thought
your
of it
lips.
that way.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
because like it's the dark, damp, moist environment. It's just like you're asking for something to start growing, right? But monolaurin, given its properties, can help avoid that, right? Monolaurin is also used in the food production and food processing industry. So monolaurin, for example, is sprayed on the outside of fruits and vegetables to aid in its transportation from like the facility to the store, right? So think about um, a tomato or an avocado or something that may get bruised during transportation and will start to like go bad, right? You don't want like a single bruised piece of fruit or vegetable to spoil the whole lot.
Mm.
Well, you spray some monolaurin on it and it's not an issue anymore, right?
Mm.
Similarly, for things like ice cream, pasta, these types of things all have some amount of monolaurin in it to help, again, with its transportation, its stability, its sort of longevity, again, given the incredible
Mm.
properties of monolaurin. It's most recently being used actually in the meat processing industry. So people are trying to be a little bit more thoughtful about their exposure to different chemicals, perhaps eating, organic or pesticide-free options. And if meat processing facility wants to avoid harsh chemicals, a lot of them actually use monolaurin to uh,
Oh.
clean the flat surfaces of processing facilities, because they don't have to use harsh chemicals. The sort of the natural antimicrobial properties of monolaurin are able to clean those flat surfaces. And there's a lot of
Mm.
really, really amazing research which supports that, but it's manifests itself in like the practical applications in the industry today.
Wow. I didn't know the majority of that. That was really informative. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So you can use it as like a shelf stabilizer, as a preservative, but like in my case with my clients or myself, I'm using it specifically as like antimicrobial, so antibacterial, antiviral. Same with the L-Lysine. I know you can't say this, and that's why I will say, you guys, he has to be very, very, very careful with his words. The FTC, FDA can actually close his entire company if he says one thing wrong. So I'm going to say all the nitty gritty things. And if you guys have any questions, I'm glad you find this super helpful. Go ahead and drop them below. Yeah, so I've been eating, I used to eat boatloads of potatoes just to be able to get like tons of L-Lysine in my day. That was a part of like my antiviral regimen when I was attacking Epstein-Barr and HSV 1 really hard. And I love potatoes. I could eat them constantly, so I don't mind. But yeah, okay, let me think. I think you explained that also thoroughly. I don't even need to go any more into that, so thank you. Okay, so one of the things that I am noticing though, not so much from your supplements, but just from monolaurin or I guess coconut in general, some of my clients they react to coconut, and it's not even just the supplement, it's like coconut water, and so I'll shift them over to the clean lysine instead. So can you talk about the difference between your L-Lysine monolaurin blend versus a clean lysine
Sure.
blend?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. And the couple of things that I wanted to address there. I thought you were going to go down the arginine path, right? Arginine is like sort of the
Mm.
counterbalance to lysine. So many people are trying to avoid arginine through their diet, and so therefore they sort of rely on supplementation to get a little bit extra lysine to balance out the lysine arginine equation in their body. But we can circle back around. Okay, so let's see. Coconut allergens. Coconuts, I don't know if they're technically categorized as a tree nut. They're not one of the top allergens according to the FDA,
Mm.
but for labeling purposes, we do put coconut warning on the label of our product. The thing is, so coconut again, a coconut allergen is not super common, but for those who do have it, we have done allergen testing for our products, and there's no coconut allergen present in the samples that we tested, right?
Mm.
And the reason why this could be the case, like, okay, well, how can you have a coconut-derived supplement and not have any coconut in it? Was because, like, again, we're going for the medium chain fatty acids. So coconut oil has three different medium chain fatty acids in it, and it has capric, caprylic, and lauric acids, right? These are three different medium chain fatty acids. These are extracted from the oil of the coconut, and then that lauric acid is further refined and processed alongside glycerol to create monolaurin. So you're really putting a lot of distance between sort of like the coconut flesh and its allergens that could potentially be present, and like the final like supplement product itself. So
Mm.
um, I don't ever suggest that someone with a coconut allergy should take the product. I think it's a lot safer and more thoughtful to avoid it and try to find a different source if possible. But according to our testing, we have not found evidence of a coconut allergen in the final product. Your second part of your question was, okay, what's the difference between the monolaurin plus lysine product and the plain lysine product?
Mhm.
Well, the monolaurin and lysine product are equal parts monolaurin and lysine. Again, monolaurin traditionally derived either from coconut or palm kernel oil, and lysine can be extracted through fermented corn. The lysine that's in the clean lysine product is just the lysine ingredient, right? Nothing else. The reason why we call it clean lysine is because we really, really try to make the formula with as few ingredients as possible on the label. So the clean lysine formula has three ingredients: the lysine itself, which is the active ingredient, the vegetarian capsule, which the lysine is inside, and then a small trace amount of organic rice powder. And a lot of people ask, like, well, why do you need the organic rice powder? And our formula, I think, has less than 2% organic rice powder in it. And the reality is high speed encapsulation equipment is very sensitive, very sophisticated stuff. And when you, the consumer, get a product, you want it to look very uniform, right? If it says 600 milligrams on the capsule, you'd better darn well have 600 milligrams in that capsule. And the best way to ensure that uniform fill and the high speed production of it is to add a little bit of it's considered a lubricant in the industry. It's called an excipient. Add a little bit of excipient to help with the flow of the lysine into the capsule.
Mm.
So just 2% organic rice powder will help ensure that the lysine gets in there in an expeditious and uniform way, and that's how we came to that formula. That's the difference.
Interesting. Huh. It just helps it like smooth
That's
everything out to be able to
right.
have that 2% in there. Interesting.
Hmm.
Great explanation. Okay, so let's see. How would I find out what mix of these supplements would be best for me?
Yeah.
Okay, go
What a
ahead.
great
You
question.
answer that.
Right. Well, as we suggested at the very beginning of our conversation, it's really about education, right? And I want to preface what I'm about to say with that supplements are not some magic cure, right? They're not going to fix every problem. Supplements, by definition and by their name, are supplementary to like
Mm,
good lifestyle habits and choices, right? Like taking a vitamin C tablet every day is not going to prevent you from catching a cold, right? But a combination of healthy lifestyle choices like a healthy diet, um, managing stress, getting good sleep, getting appropriate exercise, and potentially supplements can all work together, to help improve health and performance outcomes, right? So I want to,
mm,
just like we were talking about, like there are some things we can't say, like I want people to realize, like, look, you can't take a supplement and immediately expect results. Some supplements do work a lot faster than others. There's differences between water soluble supplements and fat soluble supplements. There's a difference between, vitamins and minerals, herbs, botanicals, antioxidants. These all have different effects across the body and may um, express themselves in different ways and at different times. So everyone's body is different. Everyone reacts differently to supplements. There's a lot of considerations: age, gender, weight, lifestyle, like health outcomes you're looking to optimize. These all come into account when selecting supplements. But what I really want to say is, like, how do you find, the right mix, as this person's asking? And the way I do it is I go on to a couple websites. One is a government website called PubMed.
mhm,
It's run by the National Institutes of Health, a U.S. government agency, and it is this incredible archive and searchable database of what are
mhm,
considered like gold standard medical studies, research studies, university studies, theses, things of that nature. And the gold standard is really, placebo-controlled, double-blinded, multi-centered studies, right? And NCBI, PubMed, has a lot of these, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of these studies. And what you can do, it works just like Google. There's a search bar, and you put your query into there. It's like, okay, you could say, if you're looking for a particular or research about a particular ingredient, you can say like, hey, vitamin C plus some profile that you're looking to correlate the ingredient to. So you could say like vitamin C and air travel, vitamin C and the common cold, or whatever it may be, right? And you'll get a lot of these gold standard studies back from universities, from private institutions, from public companies that are sponsoring research. It's really, really amazing. And when you're looking at these studies, you'll want to take into account a couple things, right? One is that many of the studies will be what's called in vitro, which means like basically in a dish, like in a petri dish, in the lab, right? Or others can be in vivo, which means in the body. But in
mm,
vivo doesn't necessarily have to mean in the human body. It could mean in like an animal vector body. So it could be a mouse, a rabbit, a monkey, something like that, right? So there are two different types of studies: in vitro and in vivo. In vitro is really cool because it like helps control and isolate a lot of the variables within the study. You know exactly what the ingredient is doing, you know where the outcomes are. It's very, very controlled, and all the parameters are very well defined. The problem is, like, when it's in the lab, it doesn't always necessarily translate to like real life. And so looking for in vivo studies, whether it's in a human or an animal subject, are sometimes a better indication of its efficacy. But that's how I start to like do my research.
mhm. Yeah, thank you for all of that. That I actually haven't used PubMed that in depth for supplements. So I'll have to try that. But yeah, so I just want to add on top of that. I'm trying to say
Well, in addition,
her name, Sailor Loren. Sorry if I butchered your name. So the way that I like to look at like what supplements I'm going to recommend for my client is I do it based on test results. One of the things that I felt like I always did when I was really sick is I would just go to Sprouts, Whole Foods, whatever, right? And I would stand at the multivitamins and I would be like, which one has the most? Because to me, the most equaled the highest quality. Yay, I'm getting everything. And I'd be, even if it was like an $80 supplement, which was ridiculous, I would still buy it. But what I've learned is that blindly supplementing is not a great way to do it. So I go off of hair tissue mineral analysis. I go off of gut test results. I do for the viruses in particular. Blood tests are really good for that. I have a doctor letter that I give to my clients, and it has specific viruses that we test for, like Epstein-Barr antibodies, TPO, thyroid antibodies, because the antibodies, in my opinion, is what shows is a reflection of how hard your immune system is fighting against something. Okay, a lot of people don't understand that, but you need to correlate those two. So, with the Epstein-Barr antibodies in particular, you can get like a digit, and so like 500, 200, 300, 400, 500 plus. And you can gauge, for me, I like to gauge the severity of the infection based on the digit. So 0 to 21 is usually the lab range. The majority of people are coming back at like 600, 700, 800s. These are on the more severe side of, an infection. I bounce it off the TPO, TGO antibodies, and I kind of just, I also have my clients do PAPs. I also have them do physicals. So we can get a whole picture of everything going on. And then based on the test results, that's when you start choosing your supplements. So I always like with his supplements, if someone has a more severe Epstein-Barr, a more severe, they're constantly getting HSV-1, HSV-2 breakouts. They have a severe, like a really bad history of yeast infections, sinus infections, these sort of things. That's when I'll bring in like kind of his heavy hitters, I guess you can call them. And that's why I like the Lysine Monolaurin. We started with that. I consider that a heavy hitter. I really like his immune support. It's a very good blend overall, like immunity booster. Because with viruses, you have to understand that there's kind of multiple areas you have to hit. This is the way I look at it. It's like we need to attack the virus. And I want you to go in, you can maybe, I don't know if you can talk about that, maybe not. But we want to stop the replication. We want to kill it. But we also want to start strengthening the immune system. It's kind of a twofer, right? Your body needs the immunity to fight, but you also can support the body by killing it with the antivirals. So I hope that helped. That's the way I like to look at it.
yeah, that's a really great explanation. Um, I failed to mention the second website when I said there are two. Google Scholar is another very good resource, and it works just like normal Google, but restricts its searches and results to just the research results. So when
Hmm.
you search for an ingredient or a supplement on traditional Google, you're going to get everything, right? You'll get people's opinions, you'll get reviews, blogs,
Yeah.
everything under the sun. Some of them very, very helpful and accurate, others potentially less so, okay?
Mm.
But when you restrict it to Google Scholar, just like PubMed, it'll be searching for legitimate research studies, and
Mm.
I just wanted to add that one
Yeah, thank
back
you.
in.
I actually
Now,
didn't
when you
even
were,
know about that one.
yeah, Google Scholar is fantastic, and I use it a lot.
Cool.
Casts a little bit of a wider net than PubMed, if you're running out of results on PubMed.
Mm.
So you said something really interesting just a moment ago around dosage and
Mm.
when to start considering a supplement regimen, when do you increase or decrease um, your intake, and that's another thing that we get questions about all the time. It's like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, like first it's like when can I see results? And like I said earlier, everyone responds differently to different supplements and routines. There are so many variables. It's really
Yeah.
impossible to say. But the other question that comes up time and time again is like, well, okay, what's the dosage that's appropriate for me? And just like the first question, it's difficult to say on an individual basis, but there are like general dosage guidelines that you can consider, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
one is something that people aren't necessarily always familiar with, which is like a introductory dose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah, I'm sure you've heard of this, but potentially we can educate some listeners on it, which is like the Herxheimer reaction, also known as the die-off reaction. And the reason why I bring this up is that, well, first let's like explain the Herxheimer reaction. So it's named after I think Austrian scientist named Joseph Herxheimer, who was trying to understand like why patients who were given antibiotics were like seemingly getting worse, right? Antibiotics supposed to like kill the bacteria, not make the patient feel sicker. But what his discovery concluded, and what is now named after him, is that the rapid die-off of pathogens can release these protein endotoxins into the system, which your body has like an inflammatory response against, right?
Yeah.
So in his example, I don't know what the patient could have, some bacterial infection, but you take a bunch of antibiotics, it kills off the bacteria, and then all of a sudden your body now has to respond to like these dead particles floating around. And the way it responds
Mm-hmm.
is with an inflammatory response. So aches, low-grade fever, sniffles, like things that like signal like, oh man, I'm actually feeling a lot worse, when
Mm-hmm.
in reality you might be getting better. So fast forward, several decades later, there are some people who think that supplements could potentially trigger a die-off reaction, just like was explained by Joseph Herxheimer. And so to avoid that, some people choose to introduce supplements into their routine with like a low and slow methodology, right? So you start with a very low dose and you slowly increase it over time. It gives your body
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of time to adjust to something that may be new into your routine, and will theoretically avoid any issues with any die-off, right? So that's the introductory dosing concept. The second concept is around a maintenance dose, right? So just like you talked about, like the immune support multivitamin blend, like a lot of people choose like to take zinc every day, or vitamin C every day, or vitamin D every day, just to like help maintain certain levels if they're lacking it in their diet. And a lot of supplements can be taken exactly like that, just like a daily dose, like a moderate dose day after day and week after week. And some people cycle them on and off, but most choose to just integrate it into their daily routine. Now, the third and final dosing protocol or thought is like sort of increasing doses when you're feeling a little bit extra stressed, right? So just like when you may be getting on an airplane, going to a foreign country with foreign foods and foreign bugs, maybe foreign uh, your immune system feels like a little bit um, challenged maybe by time zones or whatever it could be. Like people choose to dial up their supplements. They take a little bit extra zinc, a little bit extra
Mm-hmm.
vitamin C, and that can be done with other supplements as well, herbal supplements, anti and not anti-inflammatory, like botanicals, antioxidants. That's what I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking of. Sorry. It can be done with a range of supplements, like dialing it up when you feel like you need a little bit more support, and bringing it back down when you don't necessarily need it anymore.
I actually am so glad you brought that up. Excuse me. And I want to, so that's what I call triggers, right? So, death, divorce, especially for women, our period is a huge trigger because about 7 days before we start menstruating, our immune system drops by 80%. And so a lot of my clients will have breakouts, start to come on within that window and or within the window of being on their period. So I do like to increase dosages, especially if that's someone's case, in that, week before and or 2 week window, and then bring it back down to like a regular dose. This was one of the things that I started doing for myself. I realized that my period would bring on a cold sore. Excuse me. So I was like, what is this? Like, why do I always get a point? I'm like, isn't it? It's crappy enough being on your period. I don't want to get a cold sore, and or you'll get a cold. You're like more susceptible to just catching things, like from coworkers or at school or something. And so this has been one of my favorite concepts, high dosing vitamin C, high dosing lysine monolaurin, high dosing immune blends, immune supports, in that specific window. Ovulation isn't as severe. We only drop about 40% of our immune system. But that's why I was saying earlier of like being on immune supports is crucial to the fighting viruses and fighting diseases, as well. They have to. A lot of people kind of forget that. They just like want a high dose and max out on all the lysine. I'm like, what about everything else? You know? And then I also love what you said about the die off. That's another reason why a lot of my clients, they can't escape it. I'm gonna have them start juicing because and like really flushing their systems with coconut water and water. And because I'm aware that these viruses and pathogens in general, they'll not only die off as we kill them, but they replicate, they leave the dead corpses behind because they have a 6-week life cycle. And then we have all of these dead viral corpses just kicking it in our body, causing symptoms, inflammation, like you're talking about. I'm like, honey, we're gonna detox. Like, hey, we gotta cleanse all of that out. And like, so the way I look at it, I'm like, you've been fighting HSV1, HSV2, and or Epstein-Barr for 10, 20 years. We got a good solid, year cleanse that we need to start working on and get your liver, like, because I try to explain this to my clients, like our blood is like a circle, right? Like it circles through the liver. So the liver is like a catch-all. So we really want to start cleansing out all of the dead viruses. And when we start, the viral regimens, like you're saying with the die-off, like we don't want those just hanging out inside of us. We want to move them out. We want to get our detox pathways moving. We want to be able to be going number 2. We want to be giving, our body the fiber it needs with fruits and vegetables. Not only is it high lysine and all these natural, MCT chains and all the things that you're saying, but it's the fiber that we need to flush as well. And so there's so many aspects to going, like you're saying, with picking the mixes of supplements and things like these are all the other things that, it's important to look at, you guys, when we're like starting supplements for an intention of like maybe killing herpes or something.
I couldn't agree more about the fiber being a big hero here. I recently read, well, it was a podcast, I think. One of the
Mm-hmm.
founders of Levels, it's a glucose monitoring app,
Mm-hmm.
was being interviewed by Dr. Andrew Huberman, and
Mm-hmm.
she was saying something like 90% of or 95% of Americans don't get the appropriate fiber content they need. I think it's 25 grams a day.
Yeah.
And fiber is so critical, to digestion, to helping control and maintain healthy glucose levels.
Mm-hmm.
For digestion. I read actually, is it Nobel? I forget his last name. No, Taleb, Nicholas Taleb, who wrote Black Swan. He also talks
Mm-hmm.
about it in his book very randomly about like, okay, well, fiber helps scrape your intestinal lining from like potentially precancerous cells, right?
Yeah.
And people who don't have sufficient fiber in their diet can oftentimes develop like, you know,
Colon
um,
cancer. Yeah.
problems with the gut. There's
Mm-hmm.
what are they called? Starts with the P, like
Polyps.
polyps, right, and
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature. So fiber is so critical.
And it feeds your gut bacteria, it feeds your good
Mm,
gut bacteria, it feeds your
right.
vaginal bacteria. I mean, it helps you. I call them little brooms. And so when people, you guys, when we talk about fibers, you have to realize that there's many different types of fibers. And so that's why, like on my page, if you're following me, I'm always talking about legumes, nuts, and seeds, vegetables, fruits, plant-based fibers. There's so many different variations, and it's important to diversify your fibers because they each do different things, and they really assist with infections. And like I was just saying, like having your detox pathway open, because this just happened to someone close to me. She started exercising, losing a ton of weight. And so her liver, it was releasing all of her toxins, and she wasn't going number two because she had almost no fiber in her diet. So guess what happened? All those toxins came out through her skin, and she got a massive breakout everywhere. I'm like, well, honey, it's got to come out somehow. Start eating some more fruit. You'll be fine. Um, so, oh my gosh, this time goes so fast, Damon. Let me see. Really, okay. Let's touch on biofilm. I know you said you want to circle back to the arginine. If you find I don't focus on that too much, to tell you the truth. I don't find that to be like this main thing that I want to teach about, because I feel like there's so many other important areas. But if you want to talk about it, go ahead. But I really want to hear you talk about biofilm, and let's educate on that a little bit.
Happy to. Yeah. So biofilm is something that we're all familiar with, whether we know it or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a biofilm, really, all that means is that you have a collection of cells that form this like protective layer, like kind of like a shield over a colony of like bacteria or some sort of microbe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen anywhere in the body. It can happen in the oral canal and the digestive tract and the vaginal canal. Biofilms can form like almost anywhere. And the reason why I say we're all familiar with it is because we all go to the dentist, right, every 6 months or so, and it's to scrape off plaque. And plaque is the perfect example of a biofilm. It's basically, we eat the high sugar, high carbohydrate foods, which are like the best meal for a bacteria, and the bacteria sticks to our teeth. It forms a little protective biofilm, and then our own body's response, our own immune response can't clear it out
Yep.
through saliva or through other means, right? And so we have to go mechanically take it out through the dentist, right? And this
Yep.
can happen, like I said, in the gut, in the intestines, and in other places in the body. And so biofilms are something that can prevent antibiotics or antiviral medications from doing their job, pharmaceuticals from doing their job, right? So if a pharmaceutical
Mm-hmm.
comes in and is trying to disrupt a certain pathogen, and a biofilm is on the outside and it's like preventing the pharmaceutical from doing its job, like you're not like clearing the problem, right? And so a lot of studies, again on PubMed, on Google Scholar, explore biofilm formation and, more importantly, biofilm destruction. So biofilm busting, right? So how do you
Yeah,
get
let's
rid of
kill it.
biofilms? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you bust the biofilm, like sort of break down that like protective coating, that protective layer, so that either your body's natural defenses can do its job, or the pharmaceuticals that you're taking to get better can do their job.
Right. So I explain to my clients, I'm like, this is a living, these pathogens are alive, and they don't want to die, just like we don't want to die. So they have defense mechanisms. And like you said, they have a shield. They literally have an actual physical, like mucus shield that they have around themselves. I find tons of bacteria in my clients' vaginal ecosystem that are just, they have huge biofilms, and we have to use green tea. Green tea is a fantastic biofilm buster. But I love that you made a supplement called biofilm to kill the biofilm. I was like, like if you would have named it anything else, it wouldn't have been so like no brainer. But when I first saw that, I was like, this is fucking great, like straight to the point. So the biofilm, you guys, you take with like the lysine, the monolaurin, because it's that twofer. We're killing the biofilm, and then we're gonna send in the ingredients to actually like get to the virus to kill it. So keep that in mind if you're going after an infection in your body. So yeah, I love that. So for me, if I was going to recommend like a starter supplement regimen through his company, you guys, and you have an infection, you have Epstein-Barr, you have HSV1, HSV2, shingles, history shingles, chickenpox, strep throat, right? These sort of things. Then I would start with the lysine monolaurin, the biofilm, and the immune blend. Simple, kind of hits everything. And then the andrographis, and you want to cover that really fast.
Yeah, happy to. Andrographis is an amazing herb. I first learned about it. I was attending a conference on branded ingredients and ingredient research,
Hmm.
and there was a gentleman who had performed several studies on the herb, and I was just blown away. So andrographis has been used in traditional Ayurvedic medicine for literally thousands of years.
Yeah.
In India, Sri Lanka, China, places like that, right? And they're like more traditional medicine systems.
Hmm.
And so it's a very well tolerated herb. It's called the king of bitters. And andrographis has a subcomponent of it called andrographolides. And andrographolides are like the isolates that can be standardized and extracted from andrographis that have potential health benefits for immune system support. And just like L-lysine and other ingredients, which are very popular today, andrographis has an enormous amount of research online around its application for potential immune supporting benefits. And while I can't get super specific on today's call, like we talked about earlier, like a simple search on Google Scholar or
Mm.
PubMed for andrographis will result in literally hundreds or probably thousands of references and studies that explore its use for immune support health.
Yeah, it's up there with like garlic and aloe and a lot of these really ancient herbs, you guys. So I, like I just said, for the starter people, I would say that they maybe don't need to start with that, but they can add that in if they want to really support the immune system. Um, but if you're like, doing this on a budget, that would be something that you could bring in later, or you could rotate. I mean, I love the immune blend. It's just such a Did I tell you? Okay, so I have a lot of consults with a specialist, a lot of specialists at microbiome labs to go over my clients' test results. And I was showing, she said to me, "Oh, Sarah, this person really needs to be on an immune support." And I was like, "Oh, I got it covered." And she's like, "Oh, which one are you using?" So she was expecting me to go to Full Script and, one of those brands. And I was like, "No, I use Natural Cure Labs." And she pulled it up and she was reading through it and she was like, "This is so good." And I was like, "I know." And she's like, "Thank you for showing me this." It was so cute. So
That's super
I wanted to
flattering.
share that moment with you. Someone who
In the
is
industry, in the industry,
in
like,
the
yeah.
industry and very aware with the competition was like highly impressed. And she always come now because we've had a lot of consults together, me and this particular gal from Microbiome Labs. She always says, "But I know you have the Lysine Monolaurin covered for your client." And I'm like, "Yes, I do."
Well, that's fantastic. Like, I would love to maybe work with you in another capacity to see, like, hey, is there like a before and after that we could explore together? Like, can we take a baseline of like the different biomarkers and health markers of your clients? Try out a few supplement regimens and different lifestyle changes and see what the results might be.
The results are amazing. I'll tell you that. Like, I already get it. Like I worked with a girl in Canada last year and she had the worst eczema I'd ever seen. Like it literally was like greater than, the greater than symbol, 1,000. And the lab range, I'm not kidding you, was 0 to 21. I mean, even her TPO, TGO antibodies, which this is what sets me apart. Very, very different. My outlook on thyroid illness. So what I have found out, and I discovered this from going an antiviral approach on myself, it brought down my TSH and my TPO TGO antibodies. So that was my first like, whoa, what is this? What is this connection? And I've noticed the same thing with my clients. I no longer try to stabilize dosages of I don't even give two shits, frankly, about medication because I have seen over and over and over through before and after labs that if I start going after the infections, we clean up the diet, we bring down the stress, we cleanse the body, and we start a lot of these holistic whole body approaches. My client last year, or she just called me last week to like have a check-in because she missed me. It was so cute. And her TSH was a 12, which is bad, right? When we started. it's at a 1.5. It's now at a 1.5. And her TGO antibodies, which gave her a Hashimoto's diagnosis, that's what that is, which I correlate to Epstein-Barr in the actual thyroid gland, literally destroying the gland, which is why the TSH is out of balance to begin with. So I have years of watching patients completely stabilize by really hitting the infections first. So that's why I appreciate you. I appreciate your supplements. I appreciate your company. Thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for being here. So tell everyone where they can follow you and learn more about your supplements and you and everything.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's pretty easy to find us. We're at Natural Cure Labs. That's our website. That's our TikTok shop. That's where you can find us across all channels, whether it's Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, or otherwise. We don't have a super strong social presence, I will be the first to admit. We do have Natural Cure Labs on Facebook and Instagram and other social platforms, but because we try to be as compliant as possible and not flirt with any potential issues with saying things or flirting with gray areas with the FDA, FTC. Our social media is not the most exciting, so I apologize for that. But I promise, like all the effort that would have been going into social media is going into compliance and making excellent quality and transparent products.
Yes. So, and you guys, go follow him on TikTok. I saw your video the other day of you standing in your white coat in the lab with all your machines, and I was just like, wow, it was so pretty. It was like spotless, like pristine, and I was just like, that's what I would expect, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not have a facility like that with all the awards you get, you know? So yeah, go follow him on TikTok. He started to do these cute little videos where he's showing the supplements and talking about them as carefully as he can. But if you guys are interested in getting any of these supplements, obviously I am an affiliate and I do have a link in my bio. So if you go to the link, it's the beacons dot, what is it, coachsharejoy.ai or something. You go to the link in my bio and everything pulls up. You scroll down, it says top supplements. I have my favorite like 5 companies listed. Natural Pure Labs is one of them. You go through that link, it takes you to the website, and then you can get the 20%. I'm pretty sure it's 20%. Do I have 20%
10%
off?
discount.
10% off discount on the total cart,
On the
right? At checkout.
total cart. Yep.
Yeah, on the total cart. So you guys can go. If you need any help, if you want to DM me after this, and we could talk a little bit about your situation, and like maybe what supplements to start on. I'd be more than happy to give you a little bit of time to give you some guidance as well, you guys. So thanks again, Damon.
This is great. Thank you.
Yes, I'll talk to you soon.
Perfect.
Bye, everyone. All right, bye.